I'm Marilyn Bradford, founder of Right Recovery for You, and I'd like to introduce a concept today that many people find confusing, and that is the concept of use, abuse, and addiction. Now, why would I bring that up? People think either you're in addiction or you're not in an addiction, but actually that's not true, and it comes from a belief system that addiction only applies to alcohol and drugs, or maybe to gambling and sex, but no more than that. It's kind of a all or nothing thinking. And I'd like to introduce this concept to show you that there's another way of conceptualizing addiction, and that is use, abuse, and addiction. Now, one more thing before we start, which is that addiction is much more than alcohol, drugs, and sex. You can be addicted to anything. It's kind of a default place where you go when you feel anxious, or you just feel stupid, or you don't know what to do or how to cope. So people can be addicted to things like trauma drama. They can be addicted to being perfect and being right. They can be addicted to making lots of money. They can be addicted to image or to health. Everything I do is health. So it's really not just about alcohol and drugs. It is about this place where people go to that makes a behavior or a substance more important than them and an answer to these difficult feelings. So let's go back to use, abuse, and addiction. And I'll use two different types of addiction: alcohol, because it's pretty well known, and image. So with use, with alcohol, that means a person may have a beer with their friends after a sporting event, or they may have a glass of wine with a nice dinner, but they're not thinking about it particularly. And it's what the substance is actually there for, to be enjoyed, not overdone, but as a complement to something or as a social event. So that's using alcohol, what I would say, appropriately. Now let's look at image. Most of us have an image that we portray to the world, and that's not a bad thing. You can't go out raw and naked everywhere. I don't mean literally naked, but certain situations require an image that you're put together, maybe that you're a good mother or that you're a good worker. And it doesn't mean that you're not a good mother or a good worker, but you might want to include some elements that allow other people to judge you as a good mother or a good worker. And there's nothing wrong with that. So that's using image to contribute to your life, but you don't believe that that's all that you are. In other words, image is not who you are. You're this other person who has all these quirks and funny things and ups and downs, but you're presenting, maybe you're looking for a job interview. So you're presenting this image of a competent worker who will be reliable, who can do the job. That's use of image. So let's move on to abuse. Abuse of alcohol or abuse of image means that on some level that you are using alcohol or using image in a way that it really shouldn't be used. Maybe it's that you had a bad day at work, so you drink a bottle of wine. And I really shouldn't be drinking a bottle of wine, but oh my gosh, it was a really bad day at work. And you do this more than once. If you just drink a bottle of wine because you had a bad day at work once a year, I don't think that's considered really a history of abuse. But if you find yourself, whenever there's a difficulty, turning to alcohol, that's not using alcohol the way it was intended. So it's not that you're an alcoholic, but you are aware that you're using it. The same thing is true with image. Because if you begin to believe that the image is who you are, or you begin to have a sense that you can't go out in the world without image, then in a way, it's not being a contribution to you in your life. If you have the image of the perfect mother, And you find that every time you're with other mothers or every time you're tired, you pull up that image, almost like, hi, I'm a perfect mother. Then that's abuse of the of image. And that's not just use when it's going to be a contribution. And why is it abuse? Partly also because it starts to diminish your sense of who you are. And if you're being diminished by using image, that's an abuse of image. Okay, now we go to addiction. Addiction is really a place where people don't have a sense that they have any choice. That's the person that's known as the alcoholic. They know that if they consume alcohol all day long, it's going to be bad for their health. If they drive, they may have legal problems. It's avoiding the family. It's avoiding being present. It's causing problems at work. But even with all that awareness, they're like, I have to have a drink. I have to have a drink. And it's not just a chemical thing. It's a requirement to not be present at all in your life. And that's what addiction really is. When you have this requirement of a substance or a behavior that makes it impossible for you to be present because somehow being present seems to be too painful. So when we look at image, it's when you only appear with image. It's when you start believing that that's who you truly are and you have no regard for yourself, the true being that you are, so that you become the perfect mother and the perfect wife or the perfect husband throughout your life. And that's the only thing you present. And it makes a very shallow being because you've cut off the rest of your being. So that's addiction to image, when you have to have it and you cannot be in the world and just be you in any circumstances. So I hope that clears up for you all the difference between use, abuse, and addiction. Thank you so much.